So we do have letters that, Transparency in Education has created letters that you can actually fill out and send to the board. They received a whole stack of them. I'm sure that that was lovely for the two of these ladies over here. I'm not sure that they wanted to read all those, but they have those. We have legal notices, we have opt-out notices, even before anything happens. I don't know that any of this even matters right now. However, if it is something that is important to you, it is another means of communication for you to have with your board. It is another means of communication for you to have with the principal of your school. So if your child happens to go to the school and state that they would like to change their gender, they will have this notice ahead of time saying, you do not have permission to socially transition my child. You can say the opt-out letter. I think that that's a really great idea because emails don't always come through. Text messages don't always come through. I had to re-up my Find Out First 3 times in 1 year because I wasn't receiving things. That's a technical error. That has nothing to do with failures of FCPS. It happens. It happens. But miscommunication should not dictate your child's education. So having that opt-out in the beginning of the year could be a fix for some parents that are concerned that they might miss something. Hey, anything that has to do with this, 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 and this, I don't want my kid to be a part of, you've been informed. Simple, right? Support better laws, okay? Should sex ed be required? Consider changing the law to make this optional in public schools, returning this discussion to families, which many parents believe is more appropriate. Call me old school, maybe I'm dating myself at this point, but when I did sex ed, it was on puberty, and we were separated by boys and girls. We learned about what was going to happen to our bodies, and it was 1 day. One. And then we went back on to washing our hands and making sure that we were eating properly. We talked about nutrition, we talked about physical activity. Those were the things that happened in health. We did talk about sicknesses and things like that. But should sex ed be required? So sex ed is different than just puberty talk. That puberty talk that all the kids are like, oh, I'm in 5th grade, I'm gonna have to do the puberty talk, it's gonna be weird, right? That's how most kids feel about it. That's what I had, that's what probably everyone in this room had. Now it's turned into something else, and it's an entire half a semester, and then it's another semester in high school. So they're getting, 7th grade, 9th grade, 11th grade. It's a lot, and it's building. And now we're bringing it into elementary school. So how much do they need? Thomas, you want to come on up?
I was going to say, I was in the hot seat for a while. You can.
You've been standing a lot.
I'll help field them. Thank you, April, by the way. I'm sorry to give April a proper introduction. Next time I'm going to have you take the first. So any questions? Because you guys had lots of good questions earlier. I know it's easier sometimes to remember the questions as we go through the slides. But if you remember any of your questions from earlier, love to answer.
I have some organizational questions.
Sure.
About transparency in education.
Sure.
So can you answer those? Or?
I'm
You
not
might
with
be-
them.
might be able to.
Jim Lehman runs it. It's an army of one, I like to say. And we just help him with various things. So I knew a lot about specifically gender identity and that kind of stuff. So that's why I worked on the gender identity policy, which is now on international, by the way. There are folks all over the world literally proposing the same policy that Frederick County we've asked them to consider. So that's kind of my area of expertise. April knows like the sex ed stuff more, but we bring in people that know various aspects. So that's kind of how it works. It's all funded by him. People ask this question, like, are you funded? They have this like conspiracy theory that it's like funded by Jim's retirement funds. Like he just was really concerned that parents, didn't know what was going on. In his opinion, kind of like ours is, I don't care what side you're on, did you know this was happening, right? And that's really what it's all about.
And there's costs with the website, I know, but that's not like an exorbitant cost.
I don't mean he's
Yeah,
spending
that's
millions,
easier.
but
Yeah.
he's a retired guy and he's
Right.
spending some of his.
Right. But what's the source? I mean, he's not, if he's a one-man show,
Yeah.
he's
He writes
getting
the
the
articles.
source from somewhere.
Jim Speck.
He writes the articles.
He gets a lot of his stuff from Jim Speck, including the policy proposal.
What?
Jim Speck.
He's not getting funding from this.
No, I don't
So a little
know.
clarification on
City
that.
group executives, so
Jen-
it's getting funding from the
Yeah,
state.
GenSpecs is kind of the leading organization on gender identity. And to give you a little history, because I've heard people say this a
GenSpecs.
lot. So,
It's an Irish anti-trans
well,
organization.
we can disagree on the characterization, but okay, so the
You're right,
policy
you're right.
was my proposal. I wrote it for Frederick County. I then learned, I didn't even know GenSpec existed, right? So I read a bunch of studies. I read Abigail Schreier's book and multiple other books, and I said, oh my gosh, I actually was on the other side of this issue before I did the research. And I was like, I didn't realize how wrong I was. So believe it or not, I actually changed my mind. I was more on your side. I said, oh my gosh, this is actually like a major medical like scandal that like we're changing kids, cross-sex hormones. This is kind of a big deal. So I actually started writing the policy, and then eventually, after I'd written most of the policy, I discovered that GenSpec existed. And I went to them and said, hey, you guys are like the leaders in this. Somehow I didn't know this while I was writing this policy. Would you be interested in working with me to finish this thing up? And it was mostly done. So I worked with some of the researchers in person. So when you say it's GenSpec's policy, you're right, it's published under their name. We do know it actually originated in Frederick with me proposing it to them. And I did not actually even know they existed before I started writing the policy. So we say it's from them. That's sort of right. It's public, and when I had access to some of their PhDs and folks that do things that I didn't, and we all worked together to do it. But the actual genesis came from Frederick County, just so you know.
So